G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. Today, going to be going over my tips for round 13 of the 2024 AFL season. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy. And let's start as always with how it went last week. Rightio, so I think a lot of people would have had a down week in tipping. A number of upsets did occur in round 12. I'm in that same boat too. I only got a 3 out of 7, not the greatest score for the first bye round, but considering that two of my tips, or 2 out of the 3 tips that I got correct were the non-majority tips with Fremantle and also Gold Coast, I'll definitely take that. But through the games, went with Port Adelaide probably because of that home field advantage and just because I felt they'd be able to find a way to win against the Blues. But yeah, Carlton really got their stoppage game going in that second half. Went with the Pies against the Dogs. I was expecting the Bulldogs to win, but I went with the rough tip with the Pies just because I feel like they're still playing good footy even throughout. But yeah, you could see the fatigue really hit in with a lot of those younger players out there. Went with Adelaide against the Hawks. Another week of tipping against Hawthorn, and they are just screwing me over. But I did tip the Hawks against the Lions the other week ago, to be fair. Went with Eagles against the Saints, and I always lock in my tips. I should have changed to St Kilda when I saw Waterman and also Tim Kelly were out. But yeah, credit to St Kilda, found a way to win. Mason Wood was huge in that final quarter. The Cats against the Tigers, pretty easy tip there, even though the Tigers gave them a bit of a scare. And yeah, pretty happy with this one, going with the Dockers. So they seem to have the wood over the Ds, but that was the worst I saw Melbourne play in quite some time. Was not expecting a result like that. And the Suns back them at home because they do play, you know, finals quality footy up there in the Gold Coast, and they found a way to win over the Dons. So 3 out of 7. Let's hope we can improve this week. Let's have a quick look now at my tipping competition. We had 3 people last week get all their tips correct. Zad and 𝐼𝐻𝐿, 𝘲𝐶𝐶 H, and Fangright1 did manage to get themselves a full 7 out of 7 for the round. And as for who is leading my comp, it still is Magpies FX. Pushed out his lead to a margin of 2, and his total score is 97. Okay, let's start off with our tips for round 13. 8 games this weekend. The teams with the byes are Fremantle and Port Adelaide. We start off Thursday night footy. The Crows hosting the Tigers at the Adelaide Oval. With my tip last week when going with the Cats, I did feel like the Tigers would be able to push Geelong, and they certainly did do that. But from a 4-quarter perspective, it is hard to tip the Tigers at the moment. They'll continue to be competitive, continue to push good teams, but geez, you'd have to be playing with fire if you're tipping the Tigers at the moment. Now, I have been seeing that they could potentially be resting out a few of their players like Dustin Martin, so that just loses a lot of experience for the Tigers, and they're going to be heading into this game with still a pretty young side. And I know that Adelaide had one of their worst performing games probably since the COVID days of 2020 against the Hawks. They just could not move the footy at all. They looked totally lost when trying to move it out of their defensive 50. But back at the Adelaide Oval, they should lick their wounds and should find a way to play much better footy, because the last 6 weeks they have moved the ball well and they have looked good in the trenches. But yeah, their inconsistencies are just hurting them at the moment. You know, I saw that Matt Crouch is going to be out, potentially Jordan Dawson, so the kids could come in. So it's a good opportunity for the Tigers to, yeah, potentially push for a win, given the Crows are definitely low on morale and have shown some inconsistencies and are probably a bit vulnerable at the moment. But yeah, with this tip here, still going to be backing in the Crows, given that it is hard to go with Richmond, and given it's at home, the Crows should find a way to pick up the win here. And also Walker's out for them too, which is an absolute shame. But yeah, I'm going to be backing in Adelaide here over the Tigers, and we'll go the Crows by 20 points. Friday night footy now, we have the Western Bulldogs taking on the Brisbane Lions at Marvel Stadium. Probably 2 of the most inconsistent teams in the competition, but the last month of footy, I definitely have to give the Bulldogs their flowers, because the past 4 games they've won 3, and let's be honest, that loss against the Swans, if Richards and Aaron Naughton were still playing, they probably could have won that game. So yeah, they're now starting to ripen up quite a bit with how they are going. Behind the footy, they're looking quite good. O'Donnell's been playing some good games, and Lee Jones behind the ball has been very underrated in their campaign. And in the midfield, with the absence of 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐵 and also Ed Richards, Bontempelli was able to really get to work and just carry the team on his back in that 4th quarter against the Pies. But apparently Richards will come back with concussion, but I've also been hearing Liberatore could also be making a return. So big additions to that Bulldogs midfield. As for the Lions, it may just look like it is not their year. With a lot of personnel issues, they just haven't been able to play that strong, cohesive brand like they've been able to the past few seasons. Defending ball movement has also been their biggest weakness the past few weeks. And the gap between their best and worst footy this year has been pretty substantial. They've really got to try and get on top of the clearances, beat the Bulldogs at their own good game of that midfield battle. But with how the Doggies are currently going at the moment, they're playing well under the lid at Marvel too. It's hard to go against the Bulldogs here. So I'll back in the Doggies with this tip, and we'll go with the Bulldogs by 13 points. For the Saturday games now, first up we do have Hawthorn taking on the Giants down there at 𝐼𝐴. Well, what a last 5 weeks it's been for Hawthorn. Last 5 games they've managed to win 4. Even when they were 0-5, I still stuck fat with them saying, you've just got to give it time. They'll eventually get the ball rolling like they were able to last year. A poor start, and then they started racking up some wins. So, do they continue the streak here against GWS? Well, I think the Hawks are currently playing like a finals-worthy team. Their ground ball game has been excellent the past month or so. They hunt in numbers, their pressure is elite, and behind the footy, defending much better too. As for the Giants off the bye, they should be pretty rejuvenated and fresh and ready to go. No 𝐷𝐵𝐵𝐿 𝐸𝐴 though will hurt them, so it's the likes of Tom Green to try and really own that midfield, because I think the past few games before his bye he definitely has been in a bit of a down patch. The Giants are heading into this game the better side on paper. Their clearance game was excellent against the Cats, so definitely need to put that on repeat again, because before that their midfield was pretty vulnerable. So because of that, I think the Giants are probably the safe bet here. Hawthorn, a bit younger and a bit more of that inexperienced side, so you don't know what you're going to get. They could potentially be due for a loss. They will be inconsistent throughout the second half of the season. You probably do expect Hawthorn, but geez, I want to roll the Hawks. And the Giants off the bye too. Sometimes teams can be lethargic. I might go against the grain here. I think the Hawkies can genuinely get up with this game. Just as I said before, playing a really strong brand of a strong contested style. And yeah, might back in the Hawks. They play well down there at Tassie too. The Giants south of the border have dropped a few games as well. So might go the Hawks against the grain tip, but I'll back them in and they'll win a close one by 7 points. Next game up, we do have the Eagles taking on North Melbourne over there in Perth at Optus Stadium. Even though the Eagles did drop that game last week against the Saints, there would be some positives taken out of it. I thought behind the footy they defended really well. Barras had his best game in quite some time, and McGovern was tremendous too. They are going to be without 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐪y though, who has been a massive barometer with how they have been going in the midfield. So does Kelly and also Waterman come back? They probably should with this game. And as we look at North Melbourne, still without a win this season. When is it going to arrive? Could it be a chance here against West Coast? You'd think the win eventually will come soon for North Melbourne, but off the bye, you just don't know. They've got to really try and own that battle in the midfield. When North play good footy, they are very good, or quite a decent centre clearance side. So, got to try and win that area against the Eagles. But, yeah, it is hard to go against West Coast with this game. They're at home. They're versing a side that's yet to get a win. Even without 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐪y, I think they do get to Kelly and also Waterman back into this side. So, I'll back in the Eagles here. Could maybe be a close game in the first half, but the Eagles I expect to run away with it and win this game by 22 points. Saturday night footy now, we have the Saints taking on the Suns over there at Marvel Stadium. Well, it's been a massive gulf of quality between how the Suns played at home and south of the border. At home and also in NT, they've won every single game, but then they've lost every single game south of the border, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, if we want to treat the Suns seriously, they should be knocking off a side like St Kilda at Marvel Stadium with this game. But the Saints definitely want to give them their flowers last week. A disappointing first half, but they were able to come out after half-time, and through good coaching of Ross Lyon, they were able to nullify 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐪y out of the game, really get their midfield going, and for the centre, they were able to pick apart some targets. I mean, Mason Wood was great down forward. So, yeah, they've certainly got to try and stifle Gold Coast ball movement, because it has been dangerous when they have been able to get it out of the middle through the likes of Anderson, Rowell and 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐪y. But just head-to-head with this one, look, I just don't know if I can back them, the Saints, with this tip. They were somewhat unconvincing against the Eagles, and they're just in a bad run of form at the moment and not playing the sexiest style of football. And I know that Gold Coast are yet to pick up a win south of the border this season, but you'd think it will come against the Saints here. I just think that the Suns probably have the better midfield on paper at the moment, and also forward of centre. They just have so many options that could really hurt you as well. So I'll back in Gold Coast here. Better side on paper. I think they're running a bit better than the Saints at the moment too. Side in better form. So I'll go with the Suns with this tip against the Saints. So the Suns should win this game, and they'll win it by 19 points. Now for the Sunday games, first one up we have the Swans taking on the Cats at the SCG. The Swannies 10-1, 6 points clear of second place, and coming off the bye, they are in a tremendous spot at the moment, and they're yet to lose at home this season. So coming into this one definitely as the warm favourites, but I still got to say the Swans are definitely a gettable side, and if they're going to be versing a team that's definitely able to punish and able to show strong amounts of accuracy and really take their chances well, it's definitely a team like Geelong. I know that they've been out of form the past month with no Dangerfield and Guthrie. The midfield has really struggled, but I think Dangerfield and Guthrie could potentially be chances for this game, so that will definitely improve their chances. But alongside their disappointing midfield, they've just really dropped off defensively behind the footy, I think. Teams have been able to take a lot of marks inside 50 and convert their chances well, and they haven't really been aggressive defending transition. They've just been quite a vulnerable side. If they're any chance to win this one, the Cats, they've got to really try and nullify that Swans midfield with their clearances, and also try and stop the likes of Heaney, Warner and Gordon letting off the chain and kicking some goals and really getting heavily involved in their scoring. But I think when you look at the Swans at the moment, it is a team quite hard to go against. They're just ticking all the boxes at the moment. They're finding ways to win even if they're not playing the absolute greatest. And also considering this one is at the SCG, this is where the Swans play their best footy. So I'll back in the Swans here, but I do feel like the Cats will definitely come to play with this one. They need to play how they did play in the first 7 rounds, just that strong, cohesive brand of picking apart targets nicely, and they were one of the most efficient sides the first few weeks of the season. But I'll go with the Swannies with this one. Probably should be too strong here for the Cats. So Sydney will win this one by 18 points. And then Sunday night footy, got a big game here. Essendon taking on the Blues at the MCG. Massive matchup this one is. It's a classic rivalry, but two teams playing with a lot to play for. Essendon currently sitting in second, and as for the Blues, sitting in fifth and definitely want to push back up into the top 4. There was no love lost, I think, for the Dons watching them last week. Just were very inaccurate, and I think when the moments mattered, they just weren't able to convert. Stringer and also Merritt and Langford too. A lot of their players missed some gettable opportunities in front of goal. But it must be said, the last few weeks, the midfield, I feel like, has dropped off a little bit in terms of clearance numbers and etc. And given that they are playing the Blues, they certainly don't want to nap on that area of the game, because Carlton, they were able to bring their stoppage strengths in that win over Port Adelaide last week. Paddy Cripps and Sam Walsh were able to really win it well in the trenches and capitalise forward of centre very nicely too. We always talk about week in, week out that you've got to stop 𝐼𝐿𝐼 and also 𝐶𝐴𝐿𝐼 𝐾𝐸, really get a hold of their tools. Carlton play a very strong marking game, so they definitely need to nullify that one, the Dons. And after many years, for the first time, if everything goes well, Ben and Harry Macca will finally be playing on each other. Well, surely they'll be playing on each other for this game, so that'll be an exciting matchup to watch. Definitely expecting Essendon to lick their wounds and play much better footy here. It's a tough trip up there on the Gold Coast, so don't want to be too reactive with that loss. But comparing them to the Blues, I'm just like how the Blues are going in their midfield. And I think forward of centre, I look at 𝐾𝐸, I look at Macca, I think they can really get a hold of those Essendon defenders. And their turnover game was magnificent last week too, the Blues. So, yeah, I'll back them in here against the Dons, but I think this one will go right down the wire. Really, this one could go either way. I'm expecting Essendon to play much better and bounce back well. It's a tough one here, but I'll just back in the Blues with this one. A close tip, we'll go the Blues by 4 points. And now for the King's birthday match to end off the round, we do have Collingwood taking on the D's at the MCG. Well, the Pies, the past few weeks, they are certainly struggling with a lot of personal issues, but I tell you what, they are still playing some good footy. That first half, very good, first quarter against the Bulldogs was very good, but they just got overrun in the end by a pretty firing Bulldogs side, and yeah, the injuries did really show. They just got outrun, and the fatigue really set into a lot of those younger players. But back at the MCG here, they have a lot to play for at this game against the D's, and I tell you what, they'll definitely be liking their chances with how Melbourne played last week. That was probably the worst I saw Melbourne play in quite some time. How much do we take out of it though? It was up there in Alice Springs, and it was pretty warm and hot conditions up there, and they just didn't look like Melbourne at all. Like, their defense in contests was absolutely terrible. It just didn't look like a Melbourne side. So I'd almost like to think, let's just throw that game out of the window. Yes, it could be papering over the cracks if we think of it that way, but I I just think heading into this game, Melbourne should play a lot better than that. Midfield battle will definitely be a huge one. Nick Daicos has been leading the Lions the past few weeks with the absence of Jordan Ngoe and Pendlebury. He's been leading them in contest possessions and just so smooth moving in the trenches. So he's been huge to their stoppage and clearance game. And as for the Ds, well, Oliver didn't look too great last week. He's been hot and cold, so this is the game where he definitely does want to play well. Behind the footy, they definitely need to bounce back the Ds. I think the absence of Jake Lever is really hurting them. Just gives them that important structure and important cohesion behind the ball. So I think both teams heading into this game definitely have their weaknesses. I think Melbourne really need to try and control that stoppage game because they are sitting in a good area with points from stoppage this year. So definitely got to try and capitalise against the Pies here, who are a side that can definitely always make you pay. But I think I'm back in the Pies with this one. Just going the better team at the moment. The past 3 weeks, Melbourne haven't looked at their absolute best. And I still think behind the footy, without Jake Lever, they are hurting and they are also a little bit vulnerable too. So, yeah, I think Collingwood will find a way to knock off the Ds. But, yeah, expect Melbourne to play much better. But, yeah, this one we'll go back and forth, I reckon. But the Pies run away with it and win this one by 14 points. So everyone, there are my tips for round 13. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what your tips are going to be for this week. Are you going to go with any upsets or a few roughies? Always love to hear your people's opinions down below in the comments. But make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy today's video. And until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.